Hey, this is Brock Lemires, and in this video, I'm going to go over switch case decision statements in C. Okay, so we've already looked at if-else statements as a way to selectively execute statements, meaning that within a C program, you can have multiple statements, and based upon a Boolean condition that is evaluated true or false, you will either execute one or the other. We also saw how we could nest if-else statements together to form more and more checking conditions. A switch case statement in C provides a more tabular form to provide many conditions to check. Okay, and so this is really good when you have to check for a lot of different things. So let's take a look at this. The syntax for it begins as a switch. So you type the word switch. Then you give it an expression, meaning that this is going to be the variable that you will check against. Then what you do is you provide cases to check. And so you physically use the term or the syntax case, C-A-S-E, and then you say, you give it a value. So as an example, you could say switch, let's say the expression was A, and you could say case 0. What that would mean is that it would check and say, is A equal to 0? If it is, go ahead and execute these statements. When you're done with the statements under this case, you do a break syntax or break statement, which then says, I'm done with this particular case, and it jumps out of the case statement. So it will only execute one case within this switch list. Okay, so then what you do is you come down here and you put another case, and then another case, and then another case, and another case for any of the checks that you want to compare against this expression. And then at the end, you can put a default. That means that if none of those were true, go ahead and do the default statement. Very important to have the break in here though. Okay. Now, if you forget the break statement, that's bad news because it is called, whether you call it a fall through, this is where you do the case, it evaluates true, and so you execute these statements. But if you don't put the break, it won't jump out of the case or the switch statement. It'll actually move to the next case condition and check that. And so it's like it doesn't work the way that it's supposed to work. And so beware of the fall throughs. Okay, now if you compare if and else, here are two equivalent pieces of code that do the exact same thing. Okay, so over on the left is our if else, and so we have a variable called val, and it's gonna hold a character. Okay, and we're gonna check whether or not it's A, and if it is, we'll print first letter, and then if it's B, we'll print second letter. If it's C, we'll do third letter, and then otherwise we'll do other letter. So we're just gonna do 3 equality operators and then a else statement. In a switch case, what you would do is you'd say switch, and you'd put the variable here, val, and then you'd have a case. So you'd have a case A, case B, case C, and then a default. And so then under each case, you have this colon, you would do a statement and then a break, and that would be the equivalent to the first checking condition of the if else. Then if that is not true, it'll move to the next case and check it against B, and then say print that and then break, and that's the equivalent to this part of the if else. And then otherwise, if that's not true, it'll go to the third case, check that. If it's true, print that and break. And then otherwise, if none of these are true, it'll go to default and break. Okay, so that's how these two are equivalent. It should be noted that if you don't want to do anything for the, if it's like not true, or I'm sorry, false, and you don't want to do anything for in the default stage, you can just say default break and nothing will happen. It will just exit the switch. Okay, so let's look at the flow chart for this. Flowchart for it looks like a sequence of decision statements, and they really are in an order. They really are in kind of like a priority because you do check the first case first, second case second, third case third, fourth case fourth, and then you do the default. So there is a priority of checking in here. And so if I had this switch statement where I looked at a var in variable and I wanted to check whether it was 0, 1, 2, or 3, I would actually have decision statements that I put like this, and I would say, is it equal to 0? Is it equal to 1? Is it equal to 2? Or is it equal to 3? And in any situation where it's yes, you would take the path out of the decision statement, do the statement associated with that case, and then you would exit. So this is how a case statement looks. It's just a sequence of decision diamonds. All right, let's do it. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to do the same kind of example we did with checking an input condition from the user and see if it's A, go ahead and say, we're going to bring it in and say, if the input is 22, go ahead and say A is 22. If it's 109, go ahead and say it's 109. And then otherwise say it's not 22 or 109. Okay, so we kind of have this statements going on here. All right, so let's do this. So let's say I'm in my home directory right now. What I'm going to do is change into my mod 05 directory, mod 05 underscore code underscore long. And so I'm in here, and I'm going to start a new program file called switch underscore decisions. So I'm going to say vim, and I'm going to say switch underscore decisions.c, and I'll go ahead and make that big so it's not wrapping. And I'll go ahead and do that. All right, so here I am, and I'm going to do this. So I'm going to start my C program. I'm in Vim, so I'm going to go into insert mode by hitting I, and then I'll put a little comment header, and I'm going to say playing with switch case, and then end that. And then we're going to use the printf function. So we need to bring in our standard IO library or header file. So I say pound include. And then I say stdio.h, and I got that. And now let's set up the shell for our main function. I'm going to say int main void, open curly, come down here, return 0, and then close curly. And now I'm ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit escape to go into normal mode, colon to go into command mode, W for write, and now I got my file. Okay, so now I'm ready to do this. So here I go. I need to set up a program to read from the user. So I'm going to say, let's set up a variable called A, and then let's do this. Let's go prompt user for value, and let's go ahead and say printf enter value for A, and that prompt the user, and then we'll do scanf, and we'll say bring the information in and treat it as a integer in decimal format, and go ahead and stick that in the location of A. Okay, and then I'll say printf, and I'll say you entered, and then I'll do a format specifier of D, and what I'll say is in that format specifier location, go ahead and put the value of A. All right, so at this point, I want to test this and make sure that this is working. So in this shell down here, I'm going to go, let's change it in my mod 05 directory. I did that by typing mod 05, and then I hit tab, and I do an ls, and there's my code, switch decisions. So what I want to do is I want to gcc switch decisions.c, and then direct the output to switch decisions, take off the .c, run it, life is good. Do it again with warnings all on. Good, let's clear it up. Now I want to run that. So I got my switch decisions right here. I want to go / Sunny Holland. Switch decisions, enter a value for A, 33, you enter 33, good to go. Our program is operational. So now it's time to do the switch case portion. And here I go. So I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna do switch. Expression is A, open curly, and now I'm ready. So I'm gonna come down here, I'm gonna say case, and go ahead and check whether A is equal to 22. And if it is, I'm gonna do printf A is 22, put a line return, and you got it. Remember, got to break. Otherwise, you got to fall through. Then I'll do case. Let me go back over here, line these little fellas up. Case 109, and I'll say if it is, printf A is 109. Go ahead and throw a line return on there. And that, break. Make sure you got a break. And then otherwise, if that's neither of those is true, go ahead and do the default case, which is printf A is not 22 or 109. Go ahead and line return that. Go ahead and break out of that. And now the last part of this is make sure you got that closing curly. So let me write that and let's go ahead and test it. All right, so I'm coming down here. I go ahead and GCC this with warnings all. Looks good. Let me clear that up. Now let's run this thing. So I got switch operations. Let's do the first case. Let's enter 22. And did it work? You enter 22, A is 22. So it came down here, it evaluated this case condition, said this is true. So go ahead and print that and then break, jump out, done. Now let's run it again. Enter a value for A, 109. It's like you entered 109, A is 109. What happened there is it's checked case 22, said no, that's not true. Go ahead and skip it. Is it 109? It is true. So it did this statement, break to jump to there, out of there. Let's do the last one. Let's go ahead and do like -99. You enter -99. What happened is it said it's not 22, it's not 109. So let's go ahead and just do the default, which says A is not 22 or 109. Break it and done. Okay, that is a switch statement case. Very simple, very good for checking a lot of different conditions. That is it, and see ya.